The scent of unfamiliar perfume lingered in the air as Jake Collins opened his eyes to find Eliza Montgomery, the intimidating CEO of Montgomery Enterprises and his new boss of exactly 3 days, standing in his kitchen wearing nothing but his faded college t-shirt. Her words would change everything. "Your daughter is having an asthma attack. I called an ambulance." If you've ever wondered how a single moment can completely transform your life, this story will show you why hitting that like button and subscribing might be the best decision you make today. Jake had never imagined his life would take such a dramatic turn. At 34, he was doing his best to raise 8-year-old Lily after his wife's death 3 years ago. The pain of losing Sarah had dulled from a sharp stab to a persistent ache, but the challenges of single parenthood remained overwhelming. Between managing his new job as head of IT security at Montgomery Enterprises and caring for Lily, Jake barely had time to breathe, let alone think about dating again. The morning that changed everything had started like any other. Jake had woken up at 5:30 a.m., made Lily's lunch, and prepared breakfast before getting her ready for school. He dropped her off with a kiss on the forehead and a reminder about her inhaler, then rushed to work, already dreading the mountain of tasks awaiting him. Montgomery Enterprises was undergoing a major security overhaul after a data breach had cost them millions. Jake had been headhunted specifically to fix the mess, but he hadn't expected to work directly with Eliza Montgomery herself. At 41, she had a reputation for being brilliant but ruthless, a woman who had clawed her way to the top of a male-dominated industry through sheer determination and exceptional business acumen. Their first meeting had been tense. Eliza had grilled him mercilessly about his security protocols, questioning every decision he'd made since joining the company. Jake had stood his ground, explaining his reasoning with confidence despite her intimidating presence. By the end of the meeting, he thought he'd detected a flicker of respect in her steel-gray eyes, but he couldn't be sure. The next 2 days had been a blur of meetings, system upgrades, and late nights at the office. Jake had relied heavily on Mrs. Peterson, his elderly neighbor who watched Lily after school. But on the third night, Mrs. Peterson had called with bad news. She had fallen and needed to go to the hospital. With no other childcare options and a critical security update scheduled, Jake had made the difficult decision to bring Lily to the office. "Daddy, I'm bored," Lily had complained, swinging her legs as she sat in his office chair. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little longer, I promise," Jake had replied, typing furiously as he tried to finish the update. That's when Eliza had walked in, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Jake had frozen, expecting a reprimand for bringing his daughter to work. Instead, Eliza had surprised him. "You must be Lily," she'd said, her voice softer than Jake had ever heard it. "I'm Eliza. Would you like to see my office? I have a fish tank with the most beautiful tropical fish." Lily's eyes had lit up, and before Jake could protest, Eliza had taken his daughter's hand and led her away. When he'd finished his work an hour later, he'd found them in Eliza's office, Lily fast asleep on the couch while Eliza worked quietly at her desk. "She's a wonderful child," Eliza had said, her eyes never leaving her computer screen. "You should be proud." "Thank you," Jake had replied, surprised by the unexpected kindness. "And thank you for watching her. It's late. You should take her home," Eliza had said, finally looking up. Something in her expression had made Jake's heart skip a beat, a vulnerability he hadn't expected to see in someone so powerful. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Jake had received an email from Eliza with the subject line, "Childcare Solution." She had arranged for the company to provide emergency childcare services for employees with children. The email had been addressed to all staff, but Jake couldn't help feeling it was meant specifically for him. The following day, Lily had woken up with a slight wheeze in her breath. Jake had given her the prescribed dose from her inhaler and decided to keep her home from school, working remotely while monitoring her condition. By evening, she had seemed better, and Jake had allowed himself to relax. He'd fallen asleep on the couch while watching a movie with Lily, exhausted from the stress of the day. When he'd woken up, Lily was no longer beside him. Panic had surged through him until he'd heard voices from her bedroom, one small and wheezing, the other low and soothing. Jake had rushed to Lily's room to find Eliza sitting on the edge of the bed, holding Lily's inhaler and speaking calmly to his frightened daughter. "How did you get in here?" Jake had demanded, confusion momentarily overriding his concern. "You gave me your address for the company directory," Eliza had explained. "I came to drop off some documents you needed to sign. Your door was unlocked." I heard Lily struggling to breathe. Jake had moved quickly to his daughter's side, his heart racing as he assessed her condition. Her breathing was labored, her lips slightly blue. The inhaler wasn't helping enough. "I've called an ambulance," Eliza had said, her usual commanding tone replaced with genuine concern. "They'll be here in 5 minutes." The next few hours had been a blur. The ambulance ride to the hospital, the doctors working to stabilize Lily's breathing, the terrifying moments when Jake thought he might lose his daughter too. Through it all, Eliza had remained by his side, her presence unexpectedly comforting. When Lily was finally stable and sleeping peacefully in the hospital bed, Jake had stepped outside to collect himself. Eliza had followed, still wearing his t-shirt over her silk pants. She'd grabbed it when Lily had accidentally spilled water on her blouse during the commotion. "Why are you still here?" Jake had asked, not unkindly but genuinely puzzled by her continued presence. Eliza had been silent for a moment, her usual confidence seemingly diminished. 3 years ago, I lost my niece to an asthma attack," she'd finally said. "My sister was a single mother. I was too busy with work to help her that night. I've never forgiven myself." The revelation had stunned Jake. This woman, who commanded a boardroom with iron authority, was sharing something deeply personal with him. In that moment, he'd seen beyond the CEO to the human being beneath. "I'm sorry," he'd said simply. "Don't be. Just know that I understand what you're going through," Eliza had replied. "Being a single parent is the hardest job in the world. You don't have to do it alone." Those words had left Jake frozen, unable to respond. For 3 years, he'd carried the weight of parenthood on his shoulders, convinced that asking for help was a sign of weakness. Hearing Eliza acknowledge his struggle had broken something open inside him. The next morning, Jake had woken up in the uncomfortable hospital chair to find Eliza gone. In her place was a note, taking care of some things at the office. "Don't worry about work. Focus on Lily." When Lily was released from the hospital 2 days later, Jake had taken her home to find his refrigerator stocked with food, his laundry done, and a new air purifier installed in Lily's room. On the kitchen counter was another note, "These might help. Call if you need anything." Jake had been overwhelmed by the gesture. This wasn't the cold, calculating CEO he'd expected. This was someone who understood his struggles and wanted to help. Over the following weeks, a tentative friendship had formed between them. Eliza had implemented flexible working hours for parents at the company and had personally ensured that Jake could work from home whenever Lily needed him. She'd even started dropping by occasionally, bringing dinner or simply checking in on them. Lily had taken to Eliza immediately, her initial shyness giving way to genuine affection. "Is Ms. Eliza your girlfriend, Daddy?" she'd asked one evening after Eliza had left. "No, sweetheart. She's just a friend," Jake had replied, ignoring the flutter in his chest at the question. But as the months passed, Jake had found himself looking forward to Eliza's visits, to their late-night conversations after Lily had gone to bed, to the rare moments when Eliza's carefully constructed facade slipped to reveal the woman beneath. He'd learned about her childhood in a small town, her struggle to be taken seriously in the business world, her devotion to her sister and niece. In turn, he'd shared stories about Sarah, about his fears for Lily's future, about the loneliness that sometimes threatened to consume him. 6 months after that fateful night, Jake had invited Eliza to Lily's school play. Watching his daughter on stage, he'd glanced at Eliza to find her eyes shining with unshed tears. "What?" he'd whispered. "You've done an amazing job with her," Eliza had replied, her voice thick with emotion. Sarah would be proud. Jake had frozen, realizing he'd never told Eliza his late wife's name. After the play, while Lily was chatting excitedly with her friends, Jake had confronted Eliza. "How did you know Sarah's name?" Eliza had looked away, uncharacteristically nervous. "I may have done some research on you before hiring you," she'd admitted. Standard procedure for high-level security positions. But Jake had sensed there was more to the story. "That's not it, is it?" After a long pause, Eliza had confessed. "Sarah was one of my sister's friends in college. When I saw your name on the application, I recognized it. Sarah had shown my sister pictures of you and Lily. I didn't say anything because I didn't want you to think I hired you out of pity." The revelation had stunned Jake. All this time, Eliza had known about his loss, had understood his pain more deeply than he'd realized. "Why did you really hire me?" he'd asked. "Because you were the best person for the job," Eliza had replied firmly. "But I won't deny that I wanted to help you and Lily if I could. Sarah spoke so highly of you." That night, after putting Lily to bed, Jake had found himself standing in his kitchen with Eliza, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. "I should go," she'd said, but had made no move toward the door. "Or you could stay," Jake had suggested, surprising himself with his boldness. Eliza had looked at him, her usual confidence replaced with vulnerability. "Are you sure? This would complicate things." "Life is already complicated," Jake had replied. "But it's better when you're not facing it alone." Their first kiss had been tentative, a gentle exploration of new territory. But as Eliza had melted into his embrace, Jake had felt something he'd thought was lost forever, hope for a future filled with love. The following morning, Jake had woken up to find Eliza in his kitchen, wearing his shirt and making pancakes with Lily. The domesticity of the scene had made his heart ache with a bittersweet mixture of joy and guilt. "Daddy! Ms. Eliza is teaching me how to flip pancakes," Lily had exclaimed, her face alight with happiness. Eliza had turned to him, a spatula in hand and uncertainty in her eyes. "Is this okay?" she'd asked quietly. In that moment, Jake had realized that this powerful, confident woman was just as scared as he was, scared of opening her heart, of risking pain, of disrupting the careful balance of her life. But she was willing to try, for him and for Lily. "It's more than okay," he'd replied, joining them at the stove. Over the next year, their relationship had deepened. Eliza had gradually become a part of their family, her sharp edges softened by Lily's laughter and Jake's love. She'd remained the formidable CEO at work, but at home, she'd revealed a playfulness and warmth that few had ever witnessed. There had been challenges, of course. Jake had struggled with feelings of guilt, wondering if he was betraying Sarah's memory. Lily had had moments of confusion and jealousy. Eliza had grappled with balancing her demanding career with her growing commitment to Jake and Lily. But through it all, they'd communicated honestly and faced each obstacle together. Jake had learned that asking for help wasn't weakness but strength. Eliza had discovered that vulnerability didn't diminish her power but enhanced it. And Lily had flourished under the love of two adults who adored her. On the anniversary of that first night when Eliza had appeared in his kitchen wearing his shirt, Jake had proposed. Not with a grand gesture, but quietly, in the comfort of their home, with Lily as their witness. "You came into our lives when we needed you most," he'd said, holding out a simple ring. "You showed me that it's possible to honor the past while embracing the future. Will you be part of our family officially?" Eliza's "yes" had been immediate and tearful, followed by Lily's excited squeals and a group hug that had felt like coming home. Their wedding had been small and intimate, with Lily serving as both flower girl and ring bearer. As they'd exchanged vows, Jake had looked at the two females who had healed his broken heart and felt a profound gratitude for the unexpected turns his life had taken. Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Jake had found Eliza standing in the kitchen, wearing his shirt just as she had on that fateful morning. Feeling nostalgic, he'd asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Just thinking about how life can change in an instant," she replied, leaning back against him. "One moment, you're a driven CEO with no time for relationships. The next, you're a stepmom making pancakes on Sunday mornings. Any regrets?" Jake had asked, a hint of insecurity in his voice. Eliza had turned in his arms, her eyes serious. "Only that I didn't find you sooner." 5 years later, their family had grown. Lily, now a confident teenager, had been joined by a little brother named James. Eliza had restructured her company to allow for more family time, implementing policies that supported working parents and set a new standard in the industry. Jake had become her partner in both life and business, heading the company's security division while maintaining the flexible schedule that allowed him to be present for their children. Their story had inspired others, showing that it was possible to find love after loss, to balance career and family, to create a new normal that honored the past while embracing the future. And it had all begun with that morning when Jake had woken up to find Eliza in his kitchen, wearing his shirt, her words changing the course of his life forever. "Your daughter is having an asthma attack. I called an ambulance." In that moment of crisis, two broken people had found each other, proving that sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings arise from the most unexpected circumstances. As Jake looked at his family gathered around the dinner table, Lily animatedly describing her day at school, James giggling as he attempted to feed himself, Eliza watching them all with love in her eyes, he felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them together. "What are you thinking about?" Eliza asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "Just that sometimes, the things that leave us frozen in the moment turn out to be the things that set us free in the end," Jake replied, reaching for her hand. Eliza squeezed his fingers, understanding in her eyes. "From frozen to free," she said softly. "That's our story."